right, we are in Acts chapter 27. We are on a little run at the end of the book of Acts. We've been in Acts for about a year. We're going to end it in the next few weeks. We're in Acts 27. There's only 28 chapters in the book of Acts. Was anyone here to listen to Colton Tucker last week? He killed it, didn't he? I'm so proud of you guys. Several of you texted me and said, Colt was amazing, but he skipped 3 chapters. He didn't skip. We are getting to the end, and so we're cherry picking some passages because the 3 chapters were just Paul going through 3 more riots, and we've already studied that quite a bit. This is Paul going through a storm. For the next 3 weeks, we will be talking about Paul, Luke, and one other companion of theirs that go through a storm on their way to Rome. Now, let's get caught up. Where we last left Paul, he was making his way, after his 3 famous missionary journeys, he's making his way to his hometown of Jerusalem. Now, Paul was born in and grew up partly in Tarsus, which is modern-day Turkey. But then he went off to school in Jerusalem when he was like 7, 8, or 9 years old. So effectively, he was raised in the city of Jerusalem. When he gets done with the 3rd missionary journey, he desperately wants to go back to Jerusalem, but it's probably a mistake because when he gets there, it's chaos. The Jewish Christians do not like Paul because they think he's been teaching against the Old Testament to new Christians. And the Jewish authorities who are not Christians, they hate Paul because, of course, he's been effectively spreading Christianity. So they see him in the temple one day. They accuse him of bringing non-Jewish people, Greeks, into the temple. A riot breaks out. This riot breaks out. 40 different men vow to assassinate Paul during this time. So the Romans step in, and without even charging him, they throw Paul in prison just to stop the riots. And Paul is in prison, catch this, for 2 years. For 2 years, nothing happens. So Paul finally appeals to Felix, the governor of that territory, and he says, Felix, I am a Roman citizen, which they're all shocked because not every Jewish person was a Roman citizen. He said, I'm a Roman citizen, and it is my right as a Roman citizen. I appeal to Caesar. And so Felix says, I think this is a mistake, but he gets a soldier, and the soldier takes Paul on a journey to Rome in a sailboat. Now, this is where we run into the storm. Our context is right here. Go ahead and look at the context. I've kind of summarized verses 1 through 6 by picking part of verse 1 and part of verse 6. It says this, and Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius. The centurion found an Alexandrian, that's Egyptian, ship for Italy and put us on board. Luke goes to great lengths to name in these first 6 verses a lot of different ports, the timing of when they get to the port, how they get to the port, and he describes the first ship they're in. The first ship is smaller, so this centurion named Julius gets them into a larger ship. This ship is it's transporting grain. So Egypt was the supplier to Rome of all of its grain. They're making one last trip in the shipping season. They get the grain, and the centurion, who is a particular type of centurion, he's a centurion, which of course means 100, so he's over 100 soldiers, but some people will teach that he was over probably 480 because this particular centurion, Julius, is a part of the royal bodyguard. So his soldiers, they're not regular war soldiers, they protect Caesar. He answers directly to Caesar. A lot of authority. That's why he can commandeer any ship he wants. In Caesar's name, give me your ship, they have to give him the ship, right? So this is a lot like, how many remember that U.S. Marshal movie with Harrison Ford, The Fugitive? Do you remember that? If you remember that? Okay, every dad over 50 remembers that. If you're under 50, go Netflix it. It's really great. Do you remember the scene? Tommy Lee Jones, right? Tommy Lee Jones plays the marshal that brings fugitives in. That would be just like Julius. And the one great scene, there's no spiritualness, I just like this scene, and where they're in the dam. Do you remember that? They're in the dam, and Harrison Ford goes, I didn't do it. And Tommy Lee Jones says, I don't care. And then he jumps over. I love that movie. You know, I love that movie. There's one scene in it where Tommy Lee Jones is like being a great leader, and his whole team is around him, and it's in the morning, and he's giving all these orders, and they're just obeying the orders. This is what every dad wants in his house. He's like, I want dogs on that side of the river. I want dogs on this side of the river. I want a helicopter over here. Tell them to watch for the wires. I want a team over here. I want donuts, crawlers, maple bars, and it's just, and they're like, boom, boom, boom. I sat my whole family down and said, this is the way this household will be run. So the point is, Julius has a lot of authority, okay? They get on this Egyptian ship, and they start selling. I'm gonna throw up a map here and just show you. I'll start on this side. So right down here, you see this? This is the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee, right down here. And so Jerusalem's right there. So Paul is arrested there. The riot happens there. They walk up to a place called Caesarea by the Sea, okay? Caesarea by the Sea is a resort town and a port. There's a lot of boats. They get the first boat there. There's a little boat that they get here, and then they make it all the way over here, and this is where they get the larger boat. And they get the larger boat because they know they're getting close to storm season. And the centurion thinks the larger boat will save them. And they make it very difficult. The wind is pushing them in, and they want to go out to Italy. Rome is way up in that corner. That's where they're headed, way up in that corner. And so they only make it as far as Fair Haven, you'll read, and they're on the lee side of the island. Does anyone know what lee side means? It's the wind-protected side. How many sailors? Anyone sail a sailboat here? Not a single one of us. I can say anything I want by sailing, and you will believe me. Okay, lee, that's the wind-protected side. That's where we bring it. If you're still with me, give me an amen. Amen. All right, verse 7, let's look at it. It says, when Julius made slow headway and many days had difficulty riding in Sindus, when the wind did not allow us to hold our course, we sailed to the lee of Crete opposite Salmon. We moved along the coast with difficulty and came to a place called Fair Haven near the town of Lasea. Okay, why are they having much difficulty? They're having much difficulty because there's real storms in the Mediterranean. Real storms. I have to explain this to Californians because most of you do not know what a real storm is. Do you guys remember 2 years ago it rained for like 11 days straight and it made the national news? California going through an atmospheric river. I don't know where that term got made of, but I've been listening to weather for years. It was an atmospheric river. My brother from Seattle called me. Kurt, are you all right? Have the mudslides taken you away? And I'm like, okay, you live in Seattle area, right? 11 days of rain here is like all year there. Like in Seattle, they get 367 days of rain. Did you know that? So it's not news there. That rain is not a storm. Okay, I'm going to show you a storm. This is a picture of Oklahoma. Go to that picture of Oklahoma, guys. I'll go on this side. Now, this is a particular type of cloud. I'm going to explain what kind of cloud that is in a second. And that is the beginning of a tornado. That's the very start of a tornado. And these cars right here stopping to watch the tornado are called idiots. Yes. This is actually a video clip online, and you go watch this video clip, and these cars come and they just stop. I'm like, look, Marge, it's another twister. It's not. When we moved from Missouri back to California, all of our Missouri friends were like, why are you moving back to California? It's so dangerous. I said, California's not dangerous. They have earthquakes. I said, okay, I lived there for 12 years before. We had one earthquake. One. We see at least 30 mobile home parks die every year in this state. I mean, it's every spring. I went out in my front yard one year, and there's a huge highway sign buried in my front yard. Every spring, these tornadoes happen. And the reason they happen is because the dry, cold air of Canada comes down and collides with the very wet, warm air of the Gulf of America. Hey, I'm not taking sides. I just think it's a funny joke. Boom. Now, so put that next slide down. I'll go over this side this time. Put the next slide on. This, okay, can anyone tell me where this picture on your left is? Anyone know that? That's Greece. That's the Mediterranean. This is Oklahoma again. Do you notice what's going on here? It's the same cloud formation. So in the same way, the dry Canadian air and wet Gulf of Mexico, America, whatever it is, air collide in Oklahoma to create really bad storms. It's the same thing going on here. So the wet, hot water and air from the Mediterranean collides with the cold, dry air of the European continent and Asia Minor right there. It doesn't create tornadoes because the land is different. It's more rocky and reefs and sea and islands and ports. So what it creates is a thing called straight wind. Straight wind is really well named. Do you know what straight wind is? Really strong winds that go straight. You do get straight wind in Missouri. I'll learn that because we were there for a week and there was a straight wind warning and we'd never heard of straight wind, so we didn't know it was dangerous. And I took my little children out and we stood in the straight wind. And then later on people said, you're lucky they didn't die. And so it's the exact same type of storm. So when you're listening to this passage, I want you to imagine the Wizard of Oz. I want you to imagine a storm so strong it can lift up things and take it to Never Never Land. Okay? Is everyone still with me? Let's go back to the passage. Verse 8, we moved along the coast with difficulty and we came to a place called Fairhaven near the town of Lasea. Much time has been lost. The sailing had become dangerous because by now it had been the Day of Atonement. So Paul warned them. Now, before I get in the warning, let me explain what's going on here. What does it mean much time had been lost? They didn't have a particular date they had to get to Rome. What they mean by much time had been lost is they knew they were in the storm season and they had lost much time. They start in September in Caesarea, okay? When does the Day of Atonement happen? In October. When is the worst part of the storm season? November 1. So they are already in the danger zone of timing. When they say most time have been lost, that means they're not getting to Rome fast enough to get out of the danger of the storms, okay? The reason he mentions the Day of Atonement is every first century reader would know exactly where they were on the calendar. So, Paul says this warning, men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to the ship and cargo and to our own lives. By the way, Paul is not talking supernaturally here. You know, later on in the story, God will speak to Paul supernaturally, and at that moment it's really important. But this is important to know. Paul is just speaking wisdom here. He's just using his brain. He's traveled a lot. He knows this pilot knows. He knows the boat owner knows. And he knows that the centurion knows they are too late in October to be making these risks. So he says, guys, I got to just tell you the truth. You don't want to hear it, and you don't want to hear it, especially from a Jewish prisoner. But I got to tell you, this is going to be a disaster to you and your cargo. I want to just give you a little hint. If you want to give your mom a really great gift, here's the gift you give her. Start using your brain. They did a survey of moms. I read this. Kevin Thompson sent this to me. They did a survey of moms. They said, really, 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 what does a mom want for Mother's Day? Here's the top 3 things moms said on the survey they want. Number 1, mom wants you to treat your relatives and especially your siblings better. You treating mom better is not really what mom wants. Mom wants to see she raised someone who likes the person in your family that's hardest to like. When we love each other, mom gets happy. Number 2, mom would like you to succeed. The best gift you could give mom, every single one of my parent-teacher evaluations went like this. Kurt's one of the smartest kids in the class if he would just apply himself. Mom wants you to apply yourself. Work hard. Do good. Move forward. And you know the third thing? This is really truthfully what they said. The number 3 thing that mom wants from her children on Mother's Day, get off my phone bill. It's not, she gets it that it's cheaper for you. You know why mom wants you off the phone bill? It shows you growed up. All right, let's keep moving forward. But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and the owner of the ship, since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in. The majority decided that we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. So they're hoping just to get to the other side of Crete at this point. Now, why did they not listen to Paul's counsel? So we're not sure, but we could take a pretty good educated guess. One of the reasons might be an overinflated sense of duty. This is where responsibility goes wrong. Sometimes we're so concerned about our reputation and our responsibilities, we don't listen to obvious, truthful advice. Sometimes, especially I'm speaking to the dads here, we're so responsible, we hurt people. Sometimes you have to lay your responsibilities aside and say, there's a moment for stopping and listening to very inconvenient advice. Sometimes holding back is succeeding. Second reason is they're impatient for home. No one wants to winter in that lee side of the island. They want to make progress towards home. And the reason is they have wives and kids and they miss them. But you know, making a very bad decision doesn't get them any closer to their loved ones. My kids, you know, when they drive their cars, when they first got their license, I would text them, please do not look at texts while driving. How stupid is that? The truth is, sometimes you got to slow down and take a breath before you're with your loved ones so you can be with your loved ones. The main thing I say to everyone coming back from Mexico, and I've said this to my kids a ton, if you're sleepy driving, you should pull over. We'll wait a couple hours. We'll wait a day. I'll pay for a hotel room. Please do not drive sleepy. So they're impatient to get home, and it's making them foolish. Number 3, pride. You're a Roman that owns a boat. You're the pilot, a very skilled position of a boat. You're our centurion who reports directly to Caesar. Do you listen to Jewish prisoners? You know, one of the most frustrating things in life is when a 9-year-old gives you advice and they're right and you're wrong. And it happens. Do you have the maturity to hear from an unlikely source? And the last one is greed, and this is the one that affects all of us. They have a cargo of wheat. If they don't sell the wheat, they don't pay for the trip. If the wheat goes bad, they don't pay for the trip. They risk a late in season trip, and they're not going to get paid their wages. The boats, who knows who really owns the note on the boat? That's all these sort of things. Have you ever tried to save money and you ended up spending twice as much? I remodeled a bathroom once, and at the beginning of the bathroom remodel, my wife gave me this advice. She said, Kurt, I love you, but you are horrible at remodeling bathrooms. Call a plumber or an electrician. And I said, no, I can do it. And for 2 months, I spent thousands of dollars until I had to call a plumber and electrician to spend thousands of dollars. I made it literally twice as expensive. A wise person knows when they have to spend a little money to save money. Make sense? All right, let's move on. Finally, it says, this Phoenix harbor was a harbor on the Greek island of Crete, facing both southwest and northwest. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity, so they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. So what happens is day after day, they're tacking. Does anyone know what tacking is? It's a sailing technique. I don't even understand it. You're going directly in the wind, and somehow if you zigzag a lot, it pushes the boat sideways and you make forward progress. But what you have to understand about tacking is extremely hard work. Every hand is needed. The sail is changing constantly. The boat is tilting constantly. It's the hardest thing you can do in sailing, and they've been doing this for days. They have days of evidence that they're not moving forward, and they get up one morning, oh, wind's in the right direction. Forget all that evidence. Let's go for it. So why should we master this? Why do we look at this bad decision? Why learn this? First of all, people want to ask, why not just preach a nice Mother's Day message on Mother's Day? And there's a couple answers for that. Number one answer is we just teach the Bible here every weekend, no matter what the weekend is. I don't like Mother's Day special sermons. Most churches, it ends up being something like, why mom is greater than Jesus. You know, and then on Father's Day, it's even worse. It's like, why you, dad, are not a promise keeper yet, you loser. And so we like both mom and dad around here. Someone give me an amen. And we just like teaching the Bible, passage by passage. But think about this. Randomly, we're on this passage on Mother's Day, and this is the actual passage. We're talking about a passage where there's a group of men who make a stupid decision. There's someone that no one is listening to, and it's a lot of hard work. This sounds like motherhood to me. 4 of you laughed. I don't think. Here's the real reason. Storms are inevitable. We're going to get storms. You're going to have a storm. I'm going to have a storm. By the way, this is not a fable or allegory. It's not like Luke is writing, let's pretend there was a storm, and what would Paul have done? And this storm can represent the sin and chaos in our world. No, this is a real person. This is why Luke points out all the cities and towns and places. Because it's credible. His history is credible. It's got details in it. It's a real person, and it's a study in the master follower of Christ, Paul, the apostle, and how he responds to real crisis. You will have a dangerous storm if you're not already in one. It may not come in the form of weather. It may come in the form of a cancer diagnosis. Or it may come in the form of a severely depressed child. It may come in the form of a very unexpected economic crisis. It may come in the form of a marriage that just has stumbled. But we will go through a storm. They're inevitable. The question is not where the storm will come. The question is how we will handle it. And in this passage, the question is, will we see it as it comes? This passage, there's like 3 levels in chapter 27. The first one is the storm is coming. The second passage we'll talk about next week is the storm is here. And the third sermon will be the wrath of the storm, the end of the storm, the crescendo of the storm. Don't miss any of those 3 weeks, by the way, because you're all going to be called on to see a storm before it gets here. You're all going to be in the middle of a storm when it happens, and you will all reach a moment in a storm that seems impossible. And how you respond to it just determines everything. Storms are inevitable. Okay, 4 applications. I'm going to go really quickly because I know you want to have brunch with mom. Again, last time. If you're still with me, give me an amen. Okay, number 1, accept the season you're in. Accept the season. When a season is approaching you, don't deny it. Look at the facts and say, there's storm clouds on the horizon. We're going to be in this season. Don't get discouraged about it. Don't try to tell the storm to go away. It will not. The centurion here, the boat owner, the crew, they're all in denial about the season. They let a small little favorable wind, one tiny little indication, overwhelm all the facts they've been seeing for the last month. What season are you in? Or what season is about to happen to you? If you're mature enough to face it honestly and see what it is, you're going to make it through that storm a lot better. Let me talk to a couple different people in different seasons here. I want to talk to young moms and dads in the room. And grandparents, you can help me with this, reinforce this message to your children that have young children. When you have young children, I have a rule for you. Okay, here's my rule for everyone with young children. If your marriage, on a scale of 1 to 10, whatever number it is, 1 being horrible, 10 being great, if your marriage on a scale of 1 to 10, whatever number you have, for every child you are raising under 6, you get to add a point. So let's say you have 3 children under 6. You think your marriage is a 5? No, you're an 8. Why? Because you're spending all of your time putting little fingers into little sleeves and little toes into little socks and wiping little butts. And there's always one of those 3 children that refuses to be potty trained. They're just like, you're going to fight me till I'm 2. That, you know what? You're not weird. That child's not behind developmentally. That's a leader, that child. I just know how to make mom do everything for me. I remember the day that all 3 of my children, one of them sitting right there, I remember the day they were 4, 8, and 12. 4, 8, 12. 4 years and 5 years separation. And all 3 of them walked out to our minivan, got in the minivan, buckled themselves without fighting. I turned to my wife, I said, we might just make it, baby. We might just make it. Stay with me one more year. All right, let me talk to the other end of the spectrum. You're an empty nester. Your kids have gone. They've grown up. And you know what the world says to everyone that's in that empty nest season? It says you're done. You're useless. You're old. You don't got cartilage. You don't look good. We're not putting you on the poster. Camera adds 70 pounds. Have you noticed the older you get, the more pounds the camera adds? You're losing your hair. And everything about our youth saturated culture tells you your life is over. Your life is not over. Sir, listen to me. Don't retire. You refire. Now is the time you get to do everything those demon-possessed children didn't allow you to do before. This is it. This is your chance. Stand up. When the kids come over, you pretend it was miserable without them. And go have fun. There is a 66-year-old man or older in this room, and God is calling you to be at our breakaway camp for kids this summer and to be on the breakaway dance team. 66, you're going to be up there with a bunch of sixth-grade girls just doing this, going there, doing that, and living your best life. But do it with a friend, because one 66-year-old man, that's a little creepy. You got to have at least two. A little creepy, just one, right? But man, if there was 2 or 3 of you, would be the heroes of Breakaway. You're not over. Everything you've learned up to this point, now is the time to apply it. Come on, someone give me an amen. I ran into this little video clip on social media this week of a mom who was talking about going through a divorce. And she said, it was the worst season of my life. And she said, I was a disaster as a mom during that season. I turned into a bad mom. She said, it got so bad, I went to a counselor. And I couldn't even afford a real counselor. I had to go to a student counselor because I didn't have any money. And she told the student counselor, I'm here because I'm just a disaster of a mom right now. And the counselor said, well, give me some, for instances, why do you think you're a disaster as a mom? And she said, well, I used to be really concerned about my kids' nutrition, and I would make them really great meals. And now, honestly, most of the time I feed them mac and cheese, no side dish, no vegetable, just mac and cheese. It's the easiest. She said, I used to take them on all these great educational adventures, and we had so much fun on my time off, but now I sit them in front of the TV for hours because I have to go in the bedroom and just cry and cry and cry. She said they used to have their own rooms, and now they sleep on the floor on mattresses in my bedroom because we can't afford another room. And then she said, I used to be happy. Used to be happy. And now their mom is just depressed. And she said he scooted the counselor, that young counselor, scooted his chair up, looked her in the eye, and he said, I think you're an amazing mother. You think about this. At the most difficult time in your life, when it's harder for you than ever before to get out of your bed, because you love those children, you get out of your bed, you go to that grocery store, you buy that mac and cheese, and you make sure they eat. When you don't even want to live yourself, you're still concerned about them. And you're incredibly empathetic because as little children, you don't want them to feel the pressure and stress and depression of divorce. So you put them in front of that TV to laugh at their favorite cartoons so you can hide your crying from them and not put that burden on them. And she said, what child at this age wouldn't love to have a sleepover with their mom every night? And she said, finally, the most important thing though is, some people, they don't come to me to work on their depression until they're in their 70s. You've done something miraculous. You've called an office, got an appointment, got in a car, walked from that car to this office to work on your depression. You're amazing. I don't care how hard the storm you're in. If you will be mature enough to face it and ask God to tell you what he really thinks of it, you're going to find in the middle of that storm, God is building into you the perseverance and character that will serve you and your kids and your husband and your friends and the church for the rest of your life. But the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that that storm is coming. Number 2, control what you can control. Stop trying to control anything else. When a storm is coming, don't accelerate the storm with drama. Don't add to it. Don't ignore it. Don't do either of those things. Control what you can control. The thing is, storms always come when we don't want them to come. Do you ever notice problems come in sets? Paul's already arrested here. Now a storm's coming on top of it. What Paul doesn't do in the midst of this is really, really noticeable. Paul doesn't pick a fight. He doesn't go up there and go, hey, you centurion, you incompetent. How you disagree with me? I've been around the Mediterranean. I know some things. He doesn't pick a fight. On the other hand, he doesn't plan an escape. He doesn't go, here's our chance. As soon as that storm hits, Luke, we're out of here. He doesn't go to the bottom of the boat and have a pity party and ignore the storm. Paul does the only thing he can do. And that's all you could do in most storms. There's 1 or 2 things you could do, and the rest of it, you didn't create the wind, you didn't create the waves, you didn't create the collision of warm and hot air. You are not in control. Except for of what you say. At great risk, Paul steps up and says, listen, I've got to say this even though I'm the prisoner. And he speaks the truth calmly. Calmly. Now, why does he speak up? You don't always speak up. In fact, there's some times where the Bible tells us to remain silent. There's a lot of times where speaking up is dangerous and bad and foolish. When should you speak up? Well, let's look at this dynamic. Paul speaks up when danger. It's dangerous to his friends and the other prisoners in that crew. Paul loves them enough to not let the danger go unspoken to. When there is danger, when you see a kid doing something that you know is going to hurt them, my friend, you got to stand up no matter what that kid will say back to you, no matter the cost. I can't tell you the amount of parents that are afraid of losing their adult children, and therefore they don't warn them about the danger they're in, and they even enable that danger. I don't care if your teenager throws the biggest fit in the world. They should not have the internet unsupervised in their room, period. It just shouldn't happen. Come and ask me afterwards. I'll tell you a story, a tragedy after tragedy about that. You got to speak up when there's danger. Second of all, you speak up when there is vulnerable people. When you're the only one. You might be okay, but you have to defend someone else who can't speak for themselves. Paul looks at these prisoners, they're probably all political prisoners, and he says, they don't have, I will do it. I'll stand up. And here's the last one. This is really important. Speak up when the Spirit of God prompts you to. I've just learned in life, whenever I'm in a listening posture, often God will just randomly say, text this person. Call this person, encourage this person. Yesterday, I'm doing yard work, just doing yard work. All of a sudden, God said, would you text this guy named Brad? He just had a stent put in 2 weeks ago, and I was talking with him a lot around the procedure, and I hadn't talked to him about 10 days. He said, text Brad, see how he's doing. So I text Brad, just in the middle of the yard. I just stopped and said, hey, Brad, just checking in. How you doing? He said, I'm doing great, Pastor Kurt. Man, I haven't felt this good in years. This thing has really helped me. He said, but it's interesting you just text me, because God has had me praying for you constantly the last 2 days. What I thought was going to encourage Brad encouraged me. I said, I'm a little tired. Mexico, Easter, Thrive Conference. This is a busy, busy season for me. He said, I've been praying for energy for you. And then I said, I got a blood test. My annual blood test is on Wednesday, my birthday. And I said, listen, for the last 4 days, I've been eating nothing but spinach to make up for the 362 days of hamburgers. And I'm trying to wash the in and out of my system before the blood test, cramming for that test. And he's like, I'm on it. I'm praying against the lipids in your bloodstream. Now think about this. The guy praying for me is the guy who just had heart surgery. If anyone knows how to pray, it's the guy that just had heart surgery, right? You follow the prompting of the Spirit and good things happen. All right, we got to move on. Number 3, beware groupthink. Beware groupthink. So they all vote to keep going. It's the bad decision. What is groupthink? When a pack of people agree on an idea that is clearly stupid. Otherwise known as a family reunion. I only told that joke in this service. I wonder why. I wonder who the Spirit is whispering to. A groupthink is when we prioritize harmony over the truth. Harmony's great, but harmony that's in denial of the season, and the truth? Okay, so I'll give you one example, and then we'll move on. I grew up in a family of 7 kids, 3 girls, 4 boys. And one Mother's Day, we decided the boys to collectively buy mom a gift together because we thought if we pool our money, then we can all, buy something better than our sisters were going to buy her, because that was the real competition. Who could do better, the boys or the girls? And so we pooled our money. I was 9. My oldest brother was 13. There's 4 of us, tight in age. And we just debated and we argued, what should we get mom? What should we get mom? And finally, we came upon a genius idea. We all agreed on it. We went down to Kmart. Ask your mom. It was an old store. Went down to Kmart and we bought the present and we brought it home and we wrapped it in nice wrapping paper, sealed with duct tape. It was beautiful. And we put it on the table. And mom came down for Mother's Day breakfast and she opened up a beautiful, bright, shiny, brand new BB gun. We had just thought in our group thinking mind, we know what mom wants, to shoot those rats in the barn and keep the cats away from her birds. See, mom needs a BB gun. Somehow we ended up using that BB gun a lot more than mom. Groupthink is when we want to do the thing we want to do in spite of the facts, and so we all band together to convince ourselves to not look at the facts. Does the storm catch you by surprise? I grew up in a small town, small farming town, and when you grow up in a small farming town, there's always one old dude, and it's usually a dude, who's better than any scientifically trained meteorologist ever. And this is how that goes. He's the one guy that's never surprised by a storm. He'll be around and be like, yeah, there's a big one coming in. I'd say it's Monday now. It's going to be Wednesday, 3 p.m. It's going to last till Thursday at midnight. How do you know? The bursitis. The secret to this part of the passage is they're not in the storm yet, and instead of giving into groupthink, they should be looking at the horizon. Tornadoes happen very fast. So they say, oh, the tornado all of a sudden just dropped out of the sky. That's true, but listen to me, this is very important. The storm front that produces the tornado doesn't happen fast. You can see it miles away if you will. So if you're honest about what season you're in, and you're not giving in to groupthink, and you're taking care of what you could take care of, you should be able to see the storm ahead, even if you don't want to. Okay, last one. You ready for this? Keep your head, keep your head, keep your head, keep your head. I wonder if Paul, later on, he gets to Rome and he writes a letter to a guy named Timothy, and he writes this in chapter 4, verse 5. He writes, but you, Timothy, keep your head in all situations. Do this is so hard to do. Because the more intense the storm, the more chance we all start going crazy. We all start arguing. We all start going full Jerry Lewis whenever a storm comes into our life. Jerry Springfield. Both Jerry Lewises would work, and Jerry Springfield. It's not easy to do unless you actually remember before the storm hits who's in charge. Here's the bad news. You have very little control in a storm. Here's the bad news. The storm is coming. The season of the storm will come. Here's the good news. Storms don't last forever. Seasons start and seasons end. And if you're in the middle of a stormy season, keep your head. It will pass. If your marriage is just really in crisis right now, don't give up. You'll get better. Keep working. And if your marriage is doing wonderfully, don't give up. Don't give up loving each other. Don't give up working. Because a storm will come. Normally, experts call that storm children. Your marriage will be stressed. Here's the secret. You got to remember who's in charge. You got to remember you're not in charge. You got to remember who's in charge. My first son, Jesse, he was a really good sleeper. I don't know why this is, but when you get pregnant for the first time as a family, everyone that's already had kids comes up to you and says bad things to you. Do you notice this? They'll come right up to you and go, oh, labor, the worst thing ever. Billions of dollars and very painful. We were in labor for 7 days. You know, they'll say, don't do that. And they'll come up to you and say, oh yeah, children never sleep. It's like torture. You won't sleep for a year. No, you come up and you speak positive to new families. You look up and say, this child will be born like a little kitten in 3 seconds. And they will have small, non-stinky poops for life. So Jesse came out. He was a good sleeper from day one. Really good sleeper. Which made it really surprising when one night I woke up and he was screaming in his bedroom, just screaming. He's about 1 year old. And so I'm a light sleeper, so I'm up immediately. I run in there, and it's pitch black in there because the night light we had in there died. And he just woke up to pitch black. There was not even moon coming in through his window, so it's one of those dark, dark nights, and he is just disoriented. I had worried he'd fell out of the crib, but when I walked over to the crib, I picked him up. He was right there. He was just standing at the crib doing this. Just crying, just doing this. And the second I put my arms around him, he knew it was me. And he did that 1 year old thing where he just snugged into me like this. And I was just comforting him. I was like, it's okay, Jesse, I'm here. Don't worry, buddy. It's not that dark. It's just a little light that went out. It's okay. You were never in danger. I was always right here. I'm always right here. Your daddy's right here. And then God spoke to me. The thing is, I try to schedule God speaking to me, and he never obeys the schedule. Wasn't trying to hear from God, wasn't listening to God, just trying to cover my son. And this is what God said to me really clearly. Kurt, you are just like your son. When it gets a little dark, you start to panic. You think the worst. You think you're in danger. You think there's no way forward. You think that no one's got your back, but I've never left you. I'm right here. I know what you're doing before you do it, and I will always be there to put my arms around you. Kurt, you're not alone in the dark. By this time, Jesse's already back to sleep, and I am crying. Like, you really do love me, God. You really do. You're right, God. You're in control. I'm not. You're faithful. I laid him down. I went in the bedroom. I'm just weeping. Just the presence of God is all over me. And I shook Kelly. I said, baby, I said, wake up, God. Just talk to me. Just talk to me. And she looked at me and she said, would you let me sleep? I'm a mom. For once you get up and you wake me up. All right, I'll tell you at breakfast. Good, Jesus at breakfast. My friend, look at me. It's not as dark as you think. And you're not alone. You're not alone. What you think is dark is not dark to him. What you think is alone is not alone to him. What you're panicked over, he's not worried about at all. And if you let him, he'll put you in his arms, and he'll tell you that. Even when it's the darkest and worst storm of your life, he'll tell you that. And that storm will end, and you'll get through it. Amen? Can I pray for you? Father, I pray for all of us, but especially that mom that's been going through a storm recently. The storm is a child she's not sure what to do with, or a bill she's not sure how to pay, or just that feeling that she's not doing all she should do. Lord, I pray today you'd put your arms around her and tell her that what's dark to her is not dark to you. What's a storm to you is not a storm. What's a storm to her is not a storm to you. That she would literally feel your sovereign control and love. I ask it in Jesus' name, and everyone said.